Hey, hey, everyone. It is Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I'm so thrilled to welcome back Plamena Dimitrov. Welcome, Plamena.
Well, thank you so much for having me back, Naomi. I'm thrilled to be here again.
Well, it's our pleasure. So, Plamena is definitely a member of our extended family and community at Daily Clout. She's a help me out here, a molecular biologist.
And microbiologist by training.
Microbiologist. Thank you. And she has been active with our research team, and she also has another side life as a tea maker and kind of herbalist. And you all know that at the Liberty Lifestyle subsection of Daily Clout, we've been very, very, very into alternative natural remedies to keep us all out of the hands of allopathic medicine, if we possibly can avoid those visits to the hospital or those prescription meds. So today, is there anything about your bio that I left out that you want to share?
No, this is perfect,
String of
Naomi. Thank you.
credentials.
Perfect.
Sorry?
No, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
All right. Okay, great. So I was very interested in our last interview that Plamena grew up in Bulgaria, was it?
Yep.
And there she watched people around her using what we would call alternative remedies, herbs, to stay healthy, and learned a lot about that just growing up, observing. And as I keep saying, we're encouraged right now to think of eyewitness experience, our own eyes, right, as not credible sources of information. But in fact, journalists are trained to consider eyewitness accounts or testimony very credible. And so to me, it's very, very interesting that a scientist grew up observing good outcomes from alternative healing, alternative treatments, herbs. So today, we are hearing about cloves. So let's hand it right over to you, Plamena.
Well, thank you so much, Naomi, again. And before we begin, I'd like to take just a minute to digress. We spoke about star anise the first time I was here, and we talked about oil extraction. So I did my own, and I posted on social media how to make it with the timeline and everything. And what's cool about it, we had a little bit of, I don't know, cold or whatever was going on a couple of weeks ago, and I used it both internally, a teaspoon full of, and then locally on a cold sore. And as you guys remember, this was star anise has properties that are antiviral, including to herpes viruses. So, I can say I've used it and it does work.
Oh,
Based on
wow.
my own
Amazing.
account. Yes, indeed.
Well, Plamena, Daily Clout will definitely want to publish that content that you created to explain to people how to use star anise as an antiviral. Can you hold it up again and just summarize for our audience what it involved to create the essential oil?
So what I did is I took the star anise cloves and I smashed them as much as possible. Out of the clove came the little seeds, and they're kind of oily on their own. So I tried to smash as many as I can, and then put them in sesame oil. From my experience as a researcher, I know sesame oil is extremely good extractant. We use it for medical device extractions all the time. So I use sesame oil, soaked it up for 3-4 weeks, maybe it was more than about a month, I'd say. Then filtered it, and then keeping it in a dark cabinet in my in my kitchen. And I did use it. My husband had a little bit of a cold sore, and I used it topically, and 2 applications, and he didn't complain anymore. It was amazing.
Wow, amazing.
He was amazed, and
Well, that is extraordinary, and it's a very common problem in
yes,
America. A lot of people have, well, I think everyone's got that dormantly, and some people get cold sores visibly, right?
yeah.
I mean, doesn't everyone have like herpes viruses in their body? I think I heard that.
I think it's said to be that way. I have to knock on wood. I've never actually had it, and I've been surrounded by people my entire life that had it. So I guess it's somewhat genetic if it's gonna exert or not.
Interesting. But the point is, you've got a simple, affordable remedy that saves people very expensive topical applications that,
Yep.
from what I've heard from people who do have these experiences, really don't work that well, including some famous topical medications from the pharmaceutical industry. Well, that's great to know. Well, let me ask you this. A lot of people around me, especially vaccinated people, which is pretty sad, are getting COVID. If it's antiviral, would a rinse with the star anise essential oil, like a nasal rinse or a gargling with it, be a useful thing to do, or not especially?
I think gargling probably, and also just take a teaspoonful. I mean, if you make it in a carrier oil, that's good for ingesting. I
Mhm.
would. I mean, I wasn't feeling great a couple of weeks ago, and I just took a spoonful a couple of times. I don't know if that was what improved it or just a natural cause of the disease, but it definitely not harmful. And if you recall, the star anise is one of the main sources for the Tamiflu medicine. So it
Right.
definitely is against colds for sure. I mean, because that's how they extract the Tamiflu
Oh.
medicine. So
Oh, how interesting. So why not go right to the source? So
exactly.
lastly, when you say you crushed the star anise, did you use a mortar and pestle? Can you be very specific about how,
Yeah,
like, an immune
exactly.
scientist without a lab?
Mortar, exactly. I have a wooden mortar and pestle from my
Mhm,
grandparents,
mhm.
and so that's what I used, and I crushed it. I did put a reel on my social media, so I can definitely repost it where I go through the timeline how I did
Yeah,
it. It's
yeah.
9 steps, and then what it comes out at the end.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. We would love to repost that and, all similar videos. I mean, I think people need this information very
Absolutely.
much, especially, as we are thinking about how unstable the political situation is, how the food supply is being targeted. Sooner or later, pharmaceuticals will be targeted. I think they're not that safe right now anyway, from the research I've done on China's role in manufacturing all of our pharmaceuticals. China doesn't like us very much. So to me, it's a matter of like security for people watching this to think about, wow, I really want that star anise essential oil that I made, that I can vouch for. It's in my dark pantry for when my child gets sick or when my spouse is coming down with something. That's really awesome to know. And then how many star anise buds or flowers did you use versus how much sesame seed oil?
So 2/3 of seeds, and then top it off with the
Oh,
oil,
really?
and
So,
you
so
have
much
to have
seeds.
a little bit on top, like 1/3 on top of the sesame, on top of the seeds with oil. So
Right.
it's hard. I think it depends on your jar. This is what I got out of. I started with an 8 ounces jar, and this the
Right.
16-ounce jar.
Uh-huh.
And the 16-ounce jar, I had 2/3 of it filled with the seeds, and then just kept pouring until I had about 1/3 on top oil. It just has to be
And,
well submerged.
and when you say the seeds, you mean the crushed star anise.
The
Can you hold
crushed,
it right up to the camera, Plamena, so we can see very closely what it looks like?
yeah.
Oh, so you strained it. I get it. And
I
how
did
do you strain
strain
it?
it. Um,
Mhm.
so I use cheesecloth, and so it has a few crushed,
Fragments? Right.
yeah, pieces there, but it's not big. And again, it's so safe because it's safe oil, and the star anise is what I use for my tea.
So
So
really, you can ingest it. You can just drink a
yeah,
teaspoon.
absolutely. Yeah, I did.
Interesting.
I took it in internally.
I would like to suggest to people watching, I mean, I know so many people right now, and it's sad, right? Because summer is really just beginning, but people who are coming down with flus, coming down with, even COVID, try this and let us know how it works. It's very, very interesting. Or if you've coming down with a cold sore, try it and let us know how it works. I mean, this may be a little bit gross to ask. I hope not. I mean, you're a scientist, so you're not grossed out by things. But if it works for herpes simplex, do you think ingesting it would help people recover from outbreaks of genital herpes? Not asking for a friend, obviously. It's like, and personally.
It's hard to say, but the research that I did for our Star Anise podcast, it showed that it's bioactive for both type of herpes viruses.
So
I
that's
can't
not a
tell you
crazy question.
it's not. I don't think it is at all. No.
What are some other conditions for those of us who are not microbiologists? If something is antiviral and you take it internally, what are some things that it could help with? Parasites? No, because they're not viruses.
So interesting. I'm glad that you asked, because the clove actually has antiparasitic activity. So if you want, we can switch gears to clove, and I can.
Well, just come up with one more example, please, so I can picture this, because I'm learning so much about the body. Before we turn our attention to cloves and people are joining us, it's very nice to see, word is spreading. Theoretically, what kind of viruses do you have in your body that internal ingestion of star anise oil, an antiviral, can help with, just so that we can understand the body better and the science of the body?
I think if you ingest it, it just goes systemically, because it doesn't only get absorbed in the stomach. It would go systemically.
Right.
These oils are very potent, especially if you do a good extraction. So it would go systemically, and whatever is in your blood circulation, it would get affected. I mean, there were some reports for people using star anise for COVID, and also clove for COVID. So I think, but definitely if it's in your mouth, and if you're trying to lower your viral load, which is a thing, and it's good to do before you get fully fledged, infected. Gargling or ingesting, or just applying to you in your mouth, it is fair game, in my opinion. And like I said, I used it recently.
So pneumonia is a virus, right?
It could be bacterial, so it depends on the pneumonia. But
okay. Well, I guess what I'm asking is, so many people have asthma, and the risk of asthma is that it gets into your lungs, triggers pneumonia, or maybe I'm getting this wrong, but when people start wheezing, if the gunk proliferates in their lungs, is this taking this internally helpful to counteract the proliferation of respiratory gunk?
It could be. And in the case of clove, there are some sprays, nasal sprays that you can apply that goes straight to the respiratory tract.
Okay, so let's turn to clove. It sounds like we've figured out the basics of star anise. Very exciting. And like food poisoning is a bacteria, right? Plamena?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
All right, so let's turn now to clove. I just love, hearing these explanations, because it just seems like Earth has been provided with every single thing we need to stay healthy.
Absolutely.
And it's just so fascinating to me that, this spice, which we never thought about except in rum punch, works on viruses. And this spice, which is in fruitcake, is going to work on bacteria possibly. So let's turn now to cloves, and let's hear everything that we should know about cloves.
Certainly. So before we begin, I want to show it. I don't know if it can be visible. It's a little bud. It's a flower bud from a plant that is indigenous to Indonesia. And the clove plant is a part of a very large family. It's called Myrtaceae. And another few prominent members of this family that has 3,000 species in it are eucalyptus, guava, and myrtle. So this family is known to have a lot of essential oils. So that's kind of the thing about this plant family. The contents of the clove and we consume the dry one. So only people who are close by where the habitat is can consume the fresh one. We all consume the dry clove.
Okay.
And how I got introduced to it, I didn't know clove. It's not indigenous to Bulgaria. People don't traditionally cook with it. But we moved to the Mountain West 9 years ago, and the first winter, my neighbors started putting together apple cider, and
Wow.
cider has it. And that was the first time I was introduced, because you know we used to live in California, and I didn't make any apple cider in California. But and it has quite a robust flavor. It's
Mhm.
not everybody's cup of tea,
Mhm.
if you will. It's not my most favorite
Right.
spice to make a yummy tea, but it's good for apple cider and certainly for cooking.
Uh-huh.
And the fun part that I understood once I did this research is it has so many individual components you can isolate from this little, a bud. It's just mind-boggling. It has different flavonoids, and if you remember our friend quercetin.
Jumping in, nerd question. What can you explain in lay terms what a flavonoid is? This word comes up so much when health benefits of these various herbs are discussed. What is it? What does it do? Why do we like
So
it?
it is flavonoids are phytochemicals, or they're known with their biological activity. It's a class. It's like a class of, let's say, proteins, or class of amino acid. This is just a class of chemical compounds,
Okay.
but they are always derived from natural products,
What does
mainly.
phyto mean, Plamena, scientifically?
Phyto is from plants.
Oh,
So
interesting.
phytochemicals, when you hear phytochemicals, it means things that are isolated from plants, and most
Oh,
of the time have biological activity of some description.
all right.
And flavonoids, they have, I'm going to go even more nerdy on you, but they have like aromatic ring, which is like a closed 6 rings of carbons that are connected. And then
Okay.
on those rings that are different groups that kind of hang. Sometimes carbon rings can be connected, multiple carbon rings can make up the whole molecule. In this case, I believe there's several carbon rings and some
Mhm.
oxygen and hydrogen and other groups that kind of hang around.
Mhm.
And and what's cool, like I said, there's quercetin in this little bud of the clove,
Mhm.
but also quercetin was known in star anise, and we know quercetin is one of those compounds that is in the family of hydroxychloroquine, for example.
Oh,
It's that
interesting.
kind of same family.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
so quercetin is definitely known for its
Mhm.
antiviral properties.
Wow.
Camphorol is another flavonoid in this little in this clove, but
Mhm.
it's also part of cardamom, which is what we talked about
Right,
the
we
very
talked about
last
last
time
week.
I was here.
Can you finish just explaining what a flavonoid is and why it's positive? You
Um,
explained phytochemicals really well, but I just want to fully understand why everyone's excited about flavonoids.
so those are, like I said, those are bioactive class of molecules that have been isolated from different plants.
Okay,
Uh,
so bioactive means they do
they
things
have
in
biological activity, yeah. So they actually do something in our body.
Okay, well,
Like
that's important
have,
to know. I mean, that's very important to know because I think this little detour into science class is very important to know because one thing that has struck me, sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important about the way herbs are discussed in the West is as if maybe they might have an effect, but not really. It's not proven. There's not enough research. But you're saying bioactive means they have an effect. It is
yep,
proven. They do a thing in the body.
yep. And
Okay.
so what's interesting in and there's another very big component here in the clove. It's called eugenol, and eugenol is another phytochemical that is isolated. About 18% of this little bud is eugenol,
Mhm.
18%. I mean, that's huge for this
Mhm.
little bud, right?
Mhm.
So most of what I'll talk about today is data derived with eugenol and camphorol.
Okay.
Those two are the most bioactive. But like I said, there's quercetin, and we know quercetin is bioactive. And
Mm.
there's some phenolic acids, like salicylic acid. We know
Mhm.
salicylic acid in its own way can treat skin conditions. So it's not
Oh, yeah.
far-fetched to say, well, if you isolate, oil, or make tea, or, do an ethanol alcohol extraction, you're going to extract some of these in different ratios,
Wow.
and they are going to have some biological effect. It's just, and this is again a detour. What I've discovered in this my journey throughout
Mhm.
herbs and through herbology, if you will, is that we have such a redundancy in nature, right?
Mhm.
As you see, quercetin is not just in star anise, though maybe more there than here, but it's just so placed in different herbs so that people can have multiple sources,
Wow.
and there's such
Wow.
redundancy in nature. It's amazing. Like
Wow.
in northern parts of the globe, we have garlic as a main antibiotic, and
Wow.
Oregon and oregano. In southern hemisphere, you have ginger, you have turmeric, and it's just geographically we've been given such a huge redundancy. It's been
That's
mind-boggling to
amazing. That's so
understand and
beautiful. It's
grasp
like
it.
it's
Thank
like
you.
here,
Wow.
have these gifts. Have these same gifts in, in a different climate so that it'll reach you
Yep.
nonetheless. That's so beautiful. And well, let's flip what you're saying around as well. It sounds like not only is there redundancy in nature, but theoretically, if science weren't messed up and bought off by pharma, sorry, theoretically, you could take something like cloves, right? And extract multiple different ingredients from them for different
Exactly.
conditions.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. But and this is the fun part, is because it has such a diversity in its biological action. It really, you can use it in very small quantity, and it would know where to go in your body, in a way. It's kind of silly to say as a scientist, but in small quantities, if you have a inflammation in your body, it would just kind of heal that, right? Or and it
Yeah.
clove has, and it's silly, the list of anti is just so
Let's
long,
hear it. Let's hear
but
it. This
yes,
is really important.
antioxidant,
Okay. Wait,
antimicrobial.
sorry, Plamena, why is antioxidant good?
And so antioxidant is, it goes out there and finds in your body free radicals, what
Mhm.
is caused by degradation of toxins or by stress. And so it finds those and binds them and eliminates them from your body.
So
So,
theoretically keeps your body in a condition where it's not cancerous or not precancerous,
and
right?
it does actually has, exactly, but it has been shown to have anti-cancerous action too. It
Wow.
has antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, and yes, it does have antiparasitic, against 3 different species of parasites. So
So
it's
if you ingest it and you have one or more of these 3 different types of parasites, it will kill the parasites and you'd excrete them in your feces or urine, or what? How does that work?
theoretically, because I didn't find any, like all of these studies that I'm presenting are in bench. And this is, I think, real scientists start rolling their eyes. It's like, oh yeah, oh in bench, and no in petri
What
dish,
does
and no,
in bench mean?
it's on bench. So it's like in vitro, like if
Okay,
you put it on a laboratory bench and you conduct the
I
study.
see. I
But
see.
newsflash, every drug in drug development starts that way.
Starts that way,
When
of
we
course.
do drug development and take 15, 20 years to get to humans, that's
Mhm.
everything starts there, right? So
Right,
in a way, it's not different. It's just
right.
that nobody has taken the research forward
The next step,
past,
right. I see. And so
past,
the
in vitro.
theoretical, sorry to interrupt, Plamena, finish what you were saying, please.
No, it's, yep, that's it.
Well, so this is also something we're seeing a lot with this journey through the world of herbs, that there are these incredibly promising or positive in vitro studies, right? And they're not taking the next step. And the next step would be what, mammals or humans? What would be theoretical? Like, if I were to do the scientifically sensible thing and see what cloves do against fungus, parasites, cancer, antioxidant behavior in humans eventually, how would I get there if science were working the way it should?
So there's a couple of studies I found where they tried to find the toxic level of extract or the eugenol and other extracts, which is the next step. So you need to prove essentially in an animal, uh, a rat or rabbit or
Mhm.
dog, whatever or mice, that you can reach a toxic level and then you back down from there
That's a
and try to
horrible way to do science.
it.
That's
It is
horrible.
it is a requirement, unfortunately, and it is
Why not do it more humanely and find out what's the highest non-toxic level that you can get an effective result?
it is you're right, but it is the way
Oh,
science is based.
I
I don't know
hate
how
I hate that.
I
That
and
seems
a
so
lot of people
unnecessary.
it
Sorry?
it is it does cause some grief to people. It is how I mean you start incrementally increasing the dose until you reach a toxic dose and you can say,
Until
well,
your
I'm gonna
animal
go
dies. Until your animal dies or what? Vomits? I
or
mean,
start getting some adverse reactions like vomiting or lesions or what have you.
oh
And then you kind of
god.
back down
So
to
sad.
say 10x, well, 10 times less than that should be safe. And then
Right.
you
Well, that's, I guess
can
that's another subject, but that just seems very,
indeed it is.
very
But,
heartless.
but nonetheless, there have been studies. So we actually know in animal studies what is an unsafe versus a safe
Oh,
dose of
good. Good.
essential oil of clove. And the other thing I should point out is if you
Mm,
do your own oil extraction at home, similar to the star anise, it's not going to reach the same toxicity levels as if you just bought pure essential clove essential oil, because
okay.
clove essential oil is derived by pressing the seeds and just getting the extract, and that's like the purest form. If you do
Gotcha.
your own extraction at home, it's not as strong, so
Uh-huh.
you can actually use it more undiluted.
All right, let's get to, do you want to tell us some other health benefits?
Anti-cancer, I think it's worth mentioning this. So in vitro like I said, on in a petri
Yeah,
dish,
right.
on cell lines, on lung cancer cell lines, it's well documented, I would
Hmm.
say, multiple reports,
Wow.
that when you use extraction oil from clove, you essentially affect the motility of cancer cells so they cannot migrate and be metastatic.
Oh, wow. That's
You
important.
impact their ability to attack new cells. So you kind of stop them from growing, and
Mhm.
you can stop them from growing. And there is a dose dependency. So if you go too far, you start getting toxic effect for the cells around it. But
Mhm.
if you keep under a certain dose, it's really specific targeting the cancer cells. So it's
Wow.
fascinating.
So,
And
so practically, how do people translate what you just said into how they create their clove oil at home and how they take it if someone they love has cancer?
if someone has cancer, it needs to be really carefully crafted treatment plan with a functional medicine doctor, I would suggest,
Oh,
because there are some synergetic effects that have been found between chemotherapy and clove oil.
okay.
But again, you don't want to just rely on clove oil
Mhm.
and just let it get out of control. I think you just have to be really
Right.
careful. I do think, however, the antioxidant nature of the molecules that are in the oil can help you prevent getting
So
there.
let's talk about that. Let's say, we're listening to this, we don't want to get cancer. How do we prepare and use clove oil that we make at home so that we don't poison ourselves and also optimize our chances of not getting cancer and the other good things you've described.
I think several ways of using clove, not just in oil. Oil extraction obviously is one of them, because camphorol and eugenol are they tend to be extracted in oils. That's
So
the main.
let's pause there before you go on to other ways. How would you create clove oil? With a mortar and
Same
pestle?
like I did with the star anise. I would try and crush it. Now there is ground clove. I don't know how fresh the ground one is. So
We
if
don't
you
like,
want,
we prefer to crush and steep
absolutely,
things
I think
ourselves.
I
Yeah.
think so. Just
Very
crush it,
different.
or
Yeah.
use your own coffee grinder. Grind
Oh,
your
good
own.
idea. Coffee grinder. The house will smell wonderful.
Yeah, and then just same thing. I would do always 2/3 to 1/3 on top
Mhm.
with whatever carrier oil. You can use avocado, grapeseed.
Hmm.
I use sesame, but you can also just use good quality of olive oil, coconut oil, anything
Right.
that you prefer. The cool thing about clove is that it has effects for tooth decay and toothache.
No
So you
kidding.
can actually, it's one of the main, even Barbara O'Neill, I know you follow her on social media. She even talks about clove for toothache and for
Yeah.
just mouth cleansing, if you will, in her book. So
Mhm.
it's a thing. And I've used it for toothache. Um,
Mhm.
just crush it in between your teeth, keep it there. It has an it has analgesic
Hmm.
a function. Even for
Which
headache,
is
I put it
pain,
in tea for headache.
painkiller,
Yeah,
analgesic.
it has yeah, exactly. It's a painkiller, but localized in the teeth. For some reason, it just really works well when you crush a couple of cloves in between your teeth. 30 minutes, you forget about it, right? So it's a really people could possibly incorporate either essential oil, but you have to be really careful not to do more than 2-3 drops. Your
Mhm.
own, you can use more, or just the powder in your homemade toothpaste.
Right,
That's
right.
my next thing. I mean, I use turmeric, haven't done clove yet, but
Mhm.
it wouldn't hurt because it does have properties that have been well documented for.
So
Um,
you use turmeric for toothpaste?
mhm.
Doesn't that risk turning your teeth yellow?
No, it actually whitens them.
Oh
It's
my
kind of
God.
funny.
All right, well,
Yes.
let's save that for a follow-up interview on turmeric, but let's go back to cloves and how to use the cloves. So would you use the same proportions for the clove oil that you used for the star anise oil?
Yeah,
Crush it down to 2/3, add the oil at least an inch or so over the top, let it sit there for a month, strain it through cheesecloth, put it in a dark pantry. It's that simple.
absolutely. That's what
Okay.
I would do.
All right. So are there any other uses for clove oil before we get to clove teas? And then we only have a few minutes left.
Clove oil, I would probably cook with it. I mean, if you use it
Hmm.
if you, I'd cook with it. I can imagine it would give a very strong flavor, but there are some dishes that require that flavor. So, I mean, why not cook with it?
Mhm.
Um, that's what I would think. Uh,
Does it lose any potency, like medicinal potency, when it's heated in cooking?
eugenol would. It's heat sensitive, but I mean, you can put it in a salad, or
Mm,
I would think that could be a good way of not heating it, because eugenol is reported to be heat sensitive.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are some dishes? I mean, I love the idea of cloves. I guess you're not getting the full essence if you just heat up some apple cider and add cloves to it, but it's kind of
Yes.
delicious. But what could you theoretically add clove oil to? Cookies, baked goods, your
I would think so, because you do, when you bake something in the fall, all the fall breads, right, and all
Oh,
the
yeah,
fall
yeah. Yeah, baked apples
pies,
maybe, a little clove
baked
oil on the baked
apples,
apples. Nice.
absolutely. Incorporated maybe portion of your, whatever your recipe says, oil, it needs to go in the bread, like a pear bread, and you have to use some oil. maybe
Mhm.
use some of the clove oil
I love
instead of
it.
clove. I usually put just a spoonful of clove in my faux breads and things like that.
I
I
see.
use
Okay,
it for
great.
cooking a lot. That's
Okay, interesting. And then let's go to teas. Can you make a tea out of cloves? Can you steep it and drink
absolutely, yes, absolutely. I oftentimes put it for headaches.
it? Mhm.
Like I said, it's not my top favorite. Um,
Flavor. Yeah.
it's for me, it's not top. It does well in masala. It
Mhm.
does well in
Good.
chais. So we
Mm.
actually, and I'm gonna do a shameless plug. We have two chais, a Ayurvedic and a Black Oriental, and they both have it. And when you drink those chais, they're formulated so it's not super strong, the clove, but it's there.
Right.
I put it in my homemade ones for toothache and for
Mm.
headache definitely. um and I've also sometimes put it, if I do inhalation, if like
Mhm.
somebody's congested in my family, I put clove um, in a whole bunch of other things, and I just do inhalation.
Clove buds, those little,
Yep, yep,
not crushed or ground.
yeah,
Well,
no,
that's like right in the humidifier and then
yeah,
put
well, we do it the old-fashioned Bulgarian way. It's a pot, and it
a
kind of
pot.
is
My mom used to do that. My family is Russian on my mom's side, and when I was little and was congested, it would be the boiling water over the pot with the
yep,
towel. That's what you're
yep,
talking about.
yep.
So some cloves in there. That's
Put some
amazing.
cloves among other things, and it just, you can smell it. And again, we talked about it has a lot of things, like it has a lot of chemicals in it. Some of them are what I would call volatile, or they just come out at high temperature first and you can smell them. That's what gives it the smell. Well,
Mhm.
those things are good too. They're not just aromatherapy,
Oh,
but they're
wow.
also good to inhale them. So
Wow.
that's why I put it in the pot and
So as the
the
decongestant, and can you use clove? I know we've been talking about poultices and plasters, which fascinate me, that kind of, I guess you would call them bioactive compounds that when you put them on your chest or I did a video about a poultice made out of onion for, ear stuff. And I guess what I'm asking is, if you've got someone with congestion or chest congestion, could a clove poultice be helpful, or clove tea in a washcloth on the chest?
I don't know because I haven't seen it applied that way.
Mhm.
I guess oil would be
Mhm.
good. Just,
Oil,
just smear oil
right,
topically.
right.
That could be good. I can imagine. I mean, there's other way of extracting stuff is through alcohol, right? So
Yes.
alcohol extraction could be quite powerful. And in fact, in Poland, they have a medication that they sell. You can buy it here. You can buy it on Amazon for America,
Mhm,
but you can find it on Amazon and on other places. And
mhm.
it's a Polish ethanol extraction of
Ah,
multiple herbs, not just clove, but
oh, uh-huh.
there. And they recommend it for nasal spray.
Okay. And
They say
what's the
don't
name of it?
smoke it. I have to go. Let me see
That's
if I
okay.
can find it.
You can send me the link. Well,
Yeah.
Plamena, this has been absolutely fascinating. Lastly, I guess I will ask, what about muscle aches? Could clove oil be good for, like muscle pain, applied topically, or is that really not what it does?
I haven't seen reports on that. I mean, it is anti-inflammatory, but who knows exactly if it would affect those kinds of
Mhm.
pathways that cause muscle soreness.
Right. And does it, okay, well, let me end by saying you very kindly sent me some of your Ayurvedic tea, the chai, and it was incredible. I loved it. And I'm actually not usually a chai fan, but you formulated it so beautifully. So now I know how healthful it is, which I trusted that it was, but I didn't know all the details. I'm going to run down to the kitchen and have some of your essential teas, chai tea, and I'm going to give some to Brian, who's a little headachy today from a lot of time in front of the computer. This is fascinating, and I hate to say goodbye, but we've come to the end of our time. How do people find you? How do they support your your journey through the world of herbs and spices used medicinally and scientifically?
Thank you. We're on all social media, Essential Teas. The website is essentialteas.live, and I post all sorts of helpful tips, I hope. It's not all about buying my tea. People are welcome to, but I'd like to educate people to be and to empower them. This is all about empowering you, me, everyone to be able to be self-sufficient.
I love it.
And that's really my goal here.
I love it. So generous with your knowledge, which is so extensive, Plamena, and your skill as a compounder of herbs and spices to help us. So some lovely comments. Janet Diggle says, thank you for all you do. Adrian says, great conversation with Shamrock and a heart and a lot of thumbs up. It's awesome. And Kat says, chai tea is my favorite way to incorporate cloves. And on that note, everyone, we've had a nice big crowd join us. I want to thank Plamena Dimitrov. Go to essentialteas.com. Is that what it would be?
Live, L-I-V-E.
Oh, essentialteas.live. And either way, enjoy experimenting with cloves, learning more about cloves, pounding cloves in your mortar and pestle, which I can't wait to do, distilling cloves, making your clove oil, and tell me how it went. And we'll have Plamena back very soon to talk about the next exciting herb or spice. It's such a thrill. Thank you, Plamena. Thank you, everyone. Support us at dailycloud.io. We could not do this work or bring you these alternative remedies and real journalism without you and your support. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Plamena.
Thanks.
Bye.